Hello there folks, and thank you for joining me once again. And this time around I'm going to tie up a muddler minnow pattern. And this, as you can see, is definitely a small muddler. I just simply call it the mini muddler, and it doesn't have too many ingredients in this pattern. Just I tied it up with the flat gold tinsel body and just threw in a little mallard flank for the tail and for the wing. It's a cool looking little minnow pattern, and we don't have to really explain how good the muddler minnow pattern works. We all know that for sure, and in all different sizes. Now, I've caught fish on these little small guys as well. Caught some nice brook trout on them before. So I thought I'd share this particular pattern with you this time around. So I'll get him out of the vise here, a fresh hook, and I'll get started. Now the hook I'm using is a Mustad 3906B wet nymph hook, and on a size 12. I would probably tie it on a size 10. That would be the biggest I'd go, then a 12 down. Alright, you can probably tie it on a 14 too, as long as you have some fine thread that's strong. And I'm using a nanosilk thread in 12/0, and it's a really strong thread, and it's quite slippery as well. So what I do is take a little bit of Zap-A-Gap first, and we're going to put a little bit on the shank here, just so my thread doesn't slide around on me. That'll be on there nice and solid. So I'll get that started here, and we'll go a couple eye lengths behind the eye to start our thread and work back. And this thread's really strong, so I don't use my scissors to cut it unless you have a real old pair, or I just generally use a razor blade to cut this thread. So we'll come back to just about to the bend, and I'll just take a razor blade here and snip that off, just like so. And we'll come back a little bit farther to attach our tail above the barb. Now, tail is simply a real sparse amount of mallard flank fibers here. Don't need too many. And I'm going to tie those in about hook gap for the length. Right on top here, just like so. Okay, so there's our tail. And we'll wrap that down forward, all those excess material there. And I'm going to come in and trim that out. Okay. So now we'll come up to where we started our thread. I got a couple more fibers there. And I got a short piece of gold mylar tinsel here, gold and silver. And I'll tie it with the gold side down so that comes up when we go to wrap. And I also cut it to a little point there. I don't know if you can see. It's a little bit easier tied in that way. So we'll tie that in here right at the front. And if you don't have that nanosilk thread, just use whatever thread you have that's a pretty fine diameter, but it's got some strength to it. That'll work. Anything in that category will work for this fly. Just want to use it because it's good for spinning the deer here. You want a little bit extra strength for spinning the deer here. Now we'll work back to our tail. Then we're going to wrap back up the shank here and tie off once we get to our tie off point. Okay, catch that in with a couple wraps here. Another thing about the fine thread, you don't get too much build up on when you can make quite a few wraps without getting a lot of bulk, which is good when you want to leave room, especially if you're spinning deer hair. Alright, so we'll come back a couple wraps. That's fine. There's our body and our tail. Now our wing is simply another little small bunch of mallard flank here, and this just so happens to be a little darker colored mallard flank feather that I picked out of the bag, but it doesn't matter. You could also use, tying this pattern, you could throw in a piece of wood duck or teal flank as well. It would still all work. There, we're going to tie this in on top with a pinch wrap here. We'll come down nice and tight, pull straight up, wrap that in so it's nice and solid. Now I don't put any underwing or anything where it's such a small fly, because that would give you a lot of bulk as well when you go to try to tie too many materials on these small flies. And we're just going to bind that all down nice and snug here. Alrighty, so that's all there is to that. And now we're going to tie in the deer hair next. And for deer hair I'm using, this simply is just some short fine deer hair is what it says on the package. It's I think it's generally used for stimulator wings and caddis and whatnot, but it works great for these little small muddlers. But whatever deer hair you have, as long as it's quite short, will do the trick. So I'm just going to cut out a small bunch here. And then I'm going to get all the underfur out of that and stuff we don't want. Short hairs and all that stuff. Get that out of my little bundle I got here. And you don't want to put too much on, because I want a small head on this little guy. I don't want to overdo it on the deer hair either, so just keep it a fairly small bunch when you go to put it on. Alright, so I didn't put it in the stacker, I just sort of evened it up in my fingers. So now I want those tips to come back to about the end of the body. And I'll place that around the hook. And I'm going to come around with a couple loose wraps first. There's 1, 2, then I'm going to tighten up. Then come down around, really snug down, and then wrap forward to the eye. Right behind the eye like so. Just like that. Now if we see if we got any trapped deer hair fibers in there, I'm just going to go around and pick those out. If there's any trapped down by the thread, it looks pretty good. Alright, so then what you want to do is just take your deer hair ends here in the front, just bring your thread up through behind the eye and just take your fingers and pull them back. Give it quite a nice snug pull so you can get a little space there for a whip finish. Just takes one little pull. Make a couple wraps there. And this thread's really strong, so if you don't want to pull down too tight, if you're using nanosilk, it'll cut right through the deer hair. Now I'll just grab a whip finisher here, and we'll do it up. Go to 3-turn whip finish. Okay, 1, 2, 3, that's fine. Alright, I'll just bring my razor blade in once again. Give that a cut there, that's fine. Alright, so now we'll just trim our little small head on this little guy, and he'll be a done deal. And I have a little small pair of curved scissors here that I like to use for this job. Or any scissors will work, just I find the curved ones are good for this. And then we're just going to turn the vise and start trimming the head on them here. Just get a nice little round head all the way around is all you need. Doesn't have to be like perfect or anything. Okay. Just get all the long fibers off first. We're just about there, folks. And I'm just come in on the sides and thin out the collar a little bit. Just like so here. Sometimes it's easier to take them out of the vise, but this time I think I can get him with keeping them in the vise here. Alright. That's just about got it. I'm just going to try to get my head a little bit more rounded. Okay. I'm going to come in close to the eye here. Get a little of that trimmed off. And that looks pretty good. Right there. And there we have it. I could fine tune that a little more, but I won't keep cutting here because it'll make the video overly long. So I'll just, you can see the idea. But that head will work fine. That's on there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'll probably trim it a little more after. But anyway, that's another size 12 little mini muddler. Like I was saying, you can change up the wing and the tip, whatever you want to use for the tail and the wing. And there's no harm in changing the body color as well. You could use different colored tinsel or even dubbing and whatnot you could put on for the body. So anyway, that's how I tie that little guy up. So, like I always say, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to see more in the future, don't hesitate to hit that good old subscribe button there and the little bell so you know when I put a new video up. And until next time, everyone, I wish you happy tying out there. I'll see you all again soon, and so long for now, folks.